Everybody. For this week, we're moving into some more familiar territory in looking at Shakespeare's plays, and one particular play, Henry IV, Part 1. Now, I expect that you've got some background in reading Shakespeare in either reading one of the comedies, A Midsummer Night's Dream, for example, or one of the tragedies in Romeo and Juliet, or Hamlet, or Macbeth, or some combination of those two. The history plays, though, are just as important when we consider Shakespeare because they, during his time, were the blockbusters of the theater going world. They were the plays that you could always count on getting more and more people in the seats. They were very popular, and you could keep your theater going out of the ticket sales you got, or the sponsorship that you got from different people by putting on these history plays. Not only that, this is a fascinating time in English history that Shakespeare is depicting when you have what's called the War of the Roses and these warring factions over the English crown. And Henry IV, Part 1 is also tremendously valuable because it's some of Shakespeare's best, I think, written language work, but also some of his best character presentation and development. We get to see a big transition from one of the characters in terms of who he is at the beginning of the play and who he is at the end. And we get to ask important questions as to whether or not this change in him is authentic or if it's feigned, if he's planning on it the whole time in order to generate more power and what to do with that. This play keys in on some key ideas that we've been discussing throughout the semester. Most importantly, the idea of what you're supposed to do because of the station that you have in life. So think back to the Canterbury Tales and the general prologue. Some of the problems that Chaucer points out with the religious characters are not just because they tend to be bad people, but because they have greater responsibilities because of the roles that they have in being the spiritual leaders of a community. That's why the friar is such a negative character in that prologue, because he's not supposed to be doing the things he's doing because he has sworn oaths to God and he represents the church in that way. Think about that now as we move into the court. What's a king supposed to do? What roles does he hold? How does he do his job, not just as a king, but also as a father? And what is his son supposed to do? Because he's the prince, but also he should have a certain loyalty to his father as well. And you also see that in terms of these knights. How should they serve the king? Do they have responsibilities? These relationships all take place within this great play, and it's just a brilliant depiction of these individual characters. Because we are looking at individual characters, what I've given you in the discussion board is a selection of one of the four major characters. You've got Henry IV, you've got his son Hal, you've got Falstaff, and you've got the rebel Hotspur. So I want you to take one of those characters and look at how the play describes them in terms of one or a couple of key terms: loyalty and or honor. Do they uphold loyalty and honor based on the roles that they have? Does the king uphold loyalty and honor as a king or as a father? And what about Prince Hal as a son, but also as a prince? Falstaff as a knight, and one of the class of people that are supposed to hold a higher standard, that chivalric standard we talked about with Sir Gawain and with Chaucer. What are the knights supposed to do? And with Hotspur as a family member himself and as a knight in service to the king. So it's a really fascinating look at these things. I think that you'll really enjoy this assignment, but as you pick out a topic, make sure that you are illustrating your point with quotes from the text. Right? Let the text speak for itself. Let Shakespeare's word come out, and then explain how those quotes that you're including illustrate the overall point you want to make. So start with that point. This is the SEAL method link that I've got on the front page of in the For This Week section in Blackboard. Say what you're going to say. Hal is loyal to the crown, himself, the king, because, or he fails to be loyal because, or he ultimately becomes loyal because. Then illustrate that and explain how those quotes illustrate the points that you want to make. This is a short writing assignment, right? 300 words is not that long, so I don't expect you to give me a beginning to end summary of the entire play. But what I do expect for you to give me is enough information to make your point. So if you want to say that a character changes over time, illustrate that change by starting from one point and then the end, and show how that change happens versus just assuming that I'm going to follow along with you. So there's a balance there between how much of a balance between giving too much information and not enough information. So the good rule of thumb whenever you have that is to think about how much information you need to prove your specific point. Use that as a general guideline as you write this week. I think you'll enjoy this play and this assignment. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.